Hello everyone, welcome to Dear Self Live. My name is Cindy Teevens. I'm author of Alchemy, How to Feel Good No Matter What, and The Happiness Lie, What Generations Have Been Told That Makes You Unhappy. And this is Dear Self Live, the spiritual version of Dear Abby. You may be seeking answers to why you act, react, and feel the way you do. And it's said that when the student is ready, the teacher appears to appear, is what I add. Because no matter where answers appear to come from, your mentor, a book, your friend, an enemy, the dog, or a tree, ultimately they come from within you, from yourself. So ask away, because the truth is available here and now. Welcome to the catalytic conversation that can unveil it. Today's topic is real love, healthy relationships. And it's a huge topic, so we won't do it justice in the half an hour that we have, but I will talk on about it for a little while and then see if we have any questions, either live or on the chat box that I have on my website at alchemylovejoy.com, alchemylovejoy.com. And I'll check in there once in a while and also see if any of our live guests have any comments on the subject or on any subject, because we always, can throw the door open to whatever the moment calls for. So real love, what is that? Doesn't that imply there's something that is unreal love? And yeah, there is. I would say what unreal love is what we've been told, what we've been sold by friends, family, media, movies, news, that love is some kind of a ooey-gooey romantic feeling inside. And when people say they've fallen out of love, that's what they usually mean, is that they're not having that ooey-gooey feeling inside. But that is more hormonal than actual love, and it's completely unreliable. It comes and it goes. And the problem with the word love is that we have so many meanings for it. We have the ooey-gooey feeling inside, and we also have the lesser-known love as a verb, where you love somebody, and how do you do that? Or it also means you love something, and that really means a really nice glowing feeling. And so when you have love the verb, it means you take care of people or things. When you love them, you take care of them. You do what love does, even if you don't feel like doing it, even if you don't have the ooey-gooey feeling. And the irony is that if you don't do love the action, you tend not to have that ooey-gooey lovey feeling inside. So it doesn't work the other way around, that you refuse to love somebody because you don't have this temporary fleeting ooey-gooey feeling inside, which is completely unreliable. So unhealthy love would be what we've been raised to believe, and that is attachments, the belief that somebody else is going to make me happy. And the problem with that is if somebody can make you happy, they can also make you unhappy, right? And of course, neither are true. That's not what actually goes on. But that's what we believe goes on, and so that's what appears to go on, and that's what everybody agrees goes on. So there's this mass unconsciousness about love, the truth being completely overlooked. And so when you have that kind of attachment love, all kinds of problems can happen because, of course, the person you love is going to let you down one way or another. And generally, it's not because of you, it's because of them. But you tend to perceive and believe that it's because of you, because that's the nature of suffering and the idea that we need somebody or something and that we are separate from them, and even that we're separate from love. And we're not. And that's where all the suffering comes from. We have 24/7 unobstructed access to love. It is our fundamental nature. It is the baseline. It is what your natural essence and being and experience is, as long as you don't have a reason to suffer. If you have some idea that you have to suffer or that somebody doesn't love you, then that's what you'll experience. Whatever you're most interested in is what you will experience, whether it's true in the outside circumstances or not. And in fact, even if it's true in the outside circumstances, nobody can deny you love. Nobody can take your love away. This is just not possible. So we've dove right in, and we could go off in so many directions on this. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them on the chat board, or raise a hand, or type them here in the group chat. Feel free. So the number one destroyer of relationships with other people is mind reads. And what is a mind read? Mind read is imagining that you know what somebody else is thinking or feeling. And this is done so habitually, so unconsciously, that you're not even aware that you're doing it, because you're not paying attention. And it doesn't even have to involve a live person in front of you. They don't even have to be in the same country. They don't even have to be alive, actually, for you to indulge in some suffering thought and belief about somebody else. And when you do that, they don't suffer. You do. And so claiming to know what someone else is thinking or feeling is hell on earth. And it's also your wake-up call. The pain is telling you, wake up, look at where you're putting your power of attention. You're going in the wrong direction. You're moving away from love. You're moving toward fear. And that will hurt every time. So when I started to experiment with mind reads, and I noticed that I was doing them constantly, and not only that, I was mortified to discover that they were always negative. And it struck me, well, gee, if I'm going to mind read somebody negatively, why don't I mind read them positively? And so I began to experiment with that. Whenever I noticed a bad thought, mind read, I would turn it around into the exact opposite, or ask myself, what else could it be? And all manner of ideas were coming to me. Oh, it could be this, it could be that, it could be this, it could be that. And it became ridiculous. But then I realized that the first mind read was just as ridiculous as any of the others. They were all equally thoughts, all equally nothing, because that's what a thought is really nothing. I suppose they could be possibilities, but I would never know if that's the truth for the other person. And what I found when I was experimenting with mind reads, I started to ask people, instead of claiming I knew, the arrogance, right? I started to ask them, and I was blown out of the water how often, almost every time, I was wrong. And so a whole world of possibilities opened up that, geez, I wonder what it could be for them. And they were sharing things with me that I couldn't have possibly imagined, because it's not in my model of the world. It's not in my experience, not in my ideas. You see, your mind reads are about you. They're not about the other person. They come from you. It's all about your fears, your hopes, your problems, your beliefs, your concerns. And so recognizing that, you can see the mirror and find freedom. Everything you think you see out there is not out there. It's in here. And so you can work with it differently now. So in relationships, there's two power questions to use. To check your mind reads, and to keep your relationship communication on track. Because when you mind read somebody, you actually do a violence to them. You shut them down. You see only what you will see. And I've been on the receiving end of this, and I know I've been on the giving end of this, and I will do it no more. So be curious instead. Be curious what's going on for the other, instead of claiming that you know. Oh, yes, I know. The I know is the evil I. So be curious and ask them. And don't say why. Why did you do that? Because why communicates judgment. You've already judged. You're not curious. And what will happen? They'll shut down. They're not going to have any kind of open communication. They're not going to share their truth. They're going to have their mind reads about you now, and the whole thing's going to get uglier and uglier. So ask, what was your purpose? I'm curious. What was your purpose for saying that or doing that? Don't be afraid. Because I guarantee you, if you keep looking for the truth, at the bottom, below everything, you will always find love. Everybody's motive for what they do is love. Everybody's motive is happiness. Everybody wants to be happy. They're just misguided or misdirected in how to have that, how to access that. And so keep going the next layer down, the next layer down. Keep asking, what was your purpose? They'll give you an answer. Okay, oh geez, I don't understand that. Well, what was your purpose for that? And what was your purpose for that? And eventually, you will get to love, joy, peace. If not for you, then for someone else. And who would begrudge somebody else of love, joy, peace? You wouldn't. But now you can understand where they're coming from, what their thoughts were, what their feelings actually are, not your mind reads about those things. And now you can do something with that. Now you can have a real open-to-heart conversation where all the false faces fall. So I call that sacred space, a safe, sacred space when you are not in an accusing position, but rather you're in a curious position. So to trade your frustration in for curiosity or your anger in for curiosity. You're trading the illusion, the delusion in for truth. So open this sacred space with people you care about. If you have a conversation about what a mind read is with them and you both come to a good understanding of it, now you can start to express it this way. You can say, you know, I have a mind read about you. Can I share it with you? You see how you're taking responsibility for it rather than saying, why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that, which goes nowhere. And then you get into this habit of together being able to establish this space. Now, if someone comes to you with that and they have a mind read that's particularly ugly, don't get upset. It's not yours. It's not anything about you. It's about them. So ask them, what is their purpose for that? And both of you can make this discovery. And again, you'll get to the bottom. And at the bottom, love, joy, peace. Love, joy, peace. Love, joy, peace. Even if you're suffering inside your own head without anybody else around you, the purpose is love, joy, peace, ultimately, but it's backfiring. It's backfiring because you think you have to be interested in the content of what you're thinking about. But that content hurts. When you start to realize, you wake up out of it, oh yes, that hurts. And geez, it's not actually what's happening. I'm just sitting here or standing here or walking here or washing the dishes here. And that story in my head is not going on in reality. And you can step out of it and you can just stop. And when you do that, your natural love, joy, peace can be known. And so if you are in a relationship with somebody else, and it can be any relationship, we're not just talking intimate ones, family, friends, neighbors even, you can use these techniques. And a very important thing to do is to get in the habit of giving your purpose for things. Don't just do things and leave people kind of, wondering, or say things that are half thoughts. We have this lazy habit of blurting out, of making our sentences shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And if we know what's going on, we know what the rest of the conversation is. We have it all up here in our head, but they don't. And so when you do something, if you think of it, share your purpose. And if someone asks you about something before it goes into a big conversation that could become a disaster, actually share the purpose. Come out and say, oh, my purpose for that was, that's why I did that. And you can avert a whole problem that way. So communicate what is normally not spoken. What people try to do when they're misunderstood is they try and say the same thing again. Well, just say it louder. Maybe they'll get it now if I yell at them. Who's ever had that work, right? Nobody. You have to find a different way to say things. And if you get to your purpose, you'll find you have to say less and less. Because that's really what people care about. The purpose. And also communicate your wants. Oh, this arrogant. Well, he should know. He should just know this. He should just do this automatically. Says who? Says who? He's not in your head. You wouldn't want him in your head either. If you have expectations of people that they have no idea you're carrying, is that very fair to expect that they'll be fulfilled? They don't even have a chance. So what we tend to do, another major flaw in relationships, is we tend to say what we don't want, as if somehow that magically will be known, therefore, what we do want. And if you've lived enough, you'll come to the realization at some point, that doesn't work so well. It's much easier to say what you do want, but half is you don't even know what you do want. Why is that? Because you're so focused on what you don't want, and you know it so well, and you've practiced it all your life. But how much have you practiced what you do want? Yourself. You know? One of the things our generation did when I was a child was if we were crying, our parents sent us to our room if they didn't want to listen to us. And, you know, we were told, if you want to cry, go to your room. I was like, oh, that's a strange command. I don't want to cry, you know. But there I was, ended up in my room, and what did I do there? Cry even harder, right? Really contract down and suffer really, really well. I was really taught well how to suffer. How often, though, did your parents send you to your room to feel good? Hey, if you want to laugh, go to your room. Yeah, no. Just didn't happen. And so, from a very young age, we became very good at what we don't want, thinking that if we could just somehow change what we don't want, if we could just somehow control it, that person or that thing, then everything would be okay. By God, it takes a long part of your life to realize you can't control anything. I wish I was taught this when I was younger. And so it's exhaustive. And if you go through life trying to control things and people and events, and it's exhausted and you don't go anywhere, you may become bitter. You may form ideas about people. You know, we take our mind reads that somebody is a certain way in that moment. They did that because of this. And you may start to form a belief, a generalized belief about them, like they're a negative person, or like they're a judgmental person. And once you form a belief about somebody, it doesn't matter what they do or say, that is all that you will see, hear, know, or feel. That's it. It's like you have put on ugly colored glasses, and that's all you can see through. And so when relationships start to deteriorate in this way, mind reads become beliefs about people, then you can have ugly things like contempt come in, and you can start to hate somebody. But all you're hating is your mind reads, your thoughts about them. That's what you're hating. And that's hating yourself. And that's why you hurt. And you can become sick. And relationships can fall apart. But underneath it all, love, joy, peace. That's all anybody wants. And if you can return again and again and again to that common ground and keep that as your ground of safety, keep love as your most important, the highest priority, then that won't happen. And interrupt deterioration of thinking. What is deterioration of thinking? You have a mind read about somebody, or just a thought about somebody. he's doing that because whatever, he's this kind of person or whatever. And you start to feel bad when you believe that. And when you feel bad, bad thoughts come to you easily and effortlessly. And so then the thought gets worse. Oh, he's just a jerk. Who feels that right now? I even feel it saying it. And you feel worse, and thoughts deteriorate, and you feel worse, and thoughts deteriorate until that can become the most horrific things. Most horrific things. So the interruption has to come at some point, and it doesn't matter when it comes. At some point you realize this feels bad and I don't like it. But you won't realize that as long as you keep believing you have to feel bad. As long as you are lost in the content of the thought. It's like a movie in your mind, these thoughts. Pictures, images, feelings. This movie is playing and you are just so absorbed you forget you're in a theater. You're in a theater. It's not real. And the pain will grow and grow and grow until you wake up and realize you're not in a theater. And by then you may have worked the body-mind into a great big froth that is just seething, and it may take some while for that to settle down. Don't use that as belief that the content of your thinking was real either. Just notice, okay, this is what the body is feeling right now. You don't need to rationalize it, and it's because of all that content. No. Yeah, it is because of the content. It's because of the fact of the thought. It's not because of the content of the thought. So it doesn't matter how ugly the thoughts have become. They're just thoughts. And you can step out of them. So for healthy relationships, stop mind reading. Start questioning your mind reads with curiosity. And become self-fulfilling. Notice that love is right here, right now. Peace is right here, right now. It's not in the content of the thought that needs something from somebody else. It is so far removed from reality. And the further you go into it, the further lost you are. Look for love or joy or peace within, right here, right now. And if you've been torturing the body for a while, let the body be as it is. Don't notice that the body is in pain or anxiety and use that to think any other ugly thought trains that will take you off again into delusion. Just be here with the body and love it. So I'm going to stop and ask if there's any questions again. Remind you to post on the chat board if you like. I'll just that in there. You may have to register on the chat board once, not with anything identifying about your true self. Well, it can't be about your true self any, but about your personal self. And I will look to the live guests. Thank you for joining. No questions there yet. Okay, so we have a few minutes left if you have any questions. I will go over time to take care of questions if there are any. Otherwise, I will wrap it up at 3:30. So relationships, healthy relationships are used to look within, to free yourself. You don't have to be in a relationship to do that, but they sure are a good trigger. They surely do show where you're attached. And to not use them to be made happy, but instead when you're self-fulfilling and you love from within and till it's oozing out all over you, then you have more to give than to take. And relationships become fun. Not a job, not stressful, but free and fun. So if you're in one, talk about mind reads with your partner. Share that you've had mind reads and you're understanding now what they are, and that you realize they're just thoughts, that they come due to lack of information. And I have a question on the board here. Can you explain what the content of a thought looks like? The content of a thought, okay. Versus a thought itself, I'm assuming. So the content of a thought might be, you could be washing the dishes and the thought may come up, he didn't call me yet. This thought can come up. It's not too harmful, except there's some kind of attachment there that he should have called me by now, and if he hasn't, that means something. Right? So there's a lot of heavy stuff laden behind it. And you're washing the dishes, so that's the first thought. And that doesn't feel good, potentially. So as you don't feel good and you continue to contemplate this thought, the next one could be, where is he? He should have been here by now. He hasn't called. What's he doing? You start to feel worse. Oh, I bet you he's out with that woman down the street. Now how bad are we feeling? So here you are in the kitchen washing dishes. That's what's actually going on in your reality. And you've got this story going on that your partner is down the street with somebody else. And when you're absorbed in that content, you miss the fact of the thought. It's like you become absorbed in a movie and you forget you're in a theater. And you start to experience as if that is a real thing happening. You can even lose track that you're washing dishes. You could even start to press really hard on that dish and even break it and cut yourself. It's happened. And then you'd be brought back to the here and now pretty quickly. But would you miss that that whole stream was unreal? Or would you still believe that that's real? And then when he does come home, ream into him for what you imagined he did in your mind. This is unconsciousness. This is suffering, and it's completely unnecessary. This happens many times during the day, where you go off on a stream of thinking and then you come out again. But you generally don't notice it. Not very often. If you've ever driven across the city and got to the other side of the city and not remembered the trip, well, that's what's happened. You were lost in thought. You were unconscious until you got back to the other side of the city. And then, When you miss the fact of a thought as a phenomenon that arises in your experience with everything else, and you lose everything else, and you are so absorbed in that thought, you lose the here and now. It's not that thoughts are a problem. You can notice thoughts. If you notice thoughts, you are aware. You're present. You can notice them and you can speak them. Now it's a tool. That's what the purpose of thought is. That's the value. It's when it goes awry and you think it's actually real. And you get absorbed in it. that it goes off the rails. So the next question is, so what is the first thing you notice to bring you back to presence? That could be anything. As you are aware of the here and now more and more, you tend to not go off so much. And so it becomes more obvious. But in the beginning, when you are less and less here and now and more absent, shall we say, it's usually other things that bring you back. I remember cooking in the kitchen years ago and chopping vegetables, and all of a sudden I'm bawling on the floor. And nothing's happened around me, but I'm bawling on the floor. And what interrupted me back then was my cat. My cat came up and licked my nose. And it brought me out, and I said to the cat, geez, can't you see I'm suffering here? It was this crazy thing to say and to think, but it was because it was so shocking to be brought back out of that in such a loving, humorous way. But there's many things that can do it. The pain. I say use the pain. If you start using the pain, you'll be the one doing it. You won't need a cat or a bomb to go off or the house to go up in flames or anything. And that's what happens until we start to pay attention. It takes really big 2x4s before we start to wake up, right? But once you realize what's going on, you start to get an understanding, and you taste it a little bit, and you have a few experiences of going out and coming back. Maybe not consciously, but you notice it when you come back, and you're like, whoa, I was lost in thought again. And you get used to the difference between being lost in thought and being presently aware. Then it gets easier. Then you get an understanding of how to stay aware and present here and now, and how not to go out. And eventually it becomes effortless. So what's the first thing that you notice? That you were lost in thought. But what brings you out of it? Initially, it's grace. It's life. At some point, it may be pain. And that's grace too. That's a gift. We should use suffering for the only thing it's good for, to wake you up, to love, joy, peace, to here and now. Any other questions? Just look to the board one more time here. Now the topic was love and joy, but of course we covered consciousness and unconsciousness and confusion and delusion and being lost in thought, and that happens not just in relationships, it happens all the time. So the more often that you practice this, whenever you have an opportunity, as I like to call them, they're opportunities. When you have pain is an opportunity. Then you get better with it in relationships and elsewhere in all other areas of your life. Okay, since we have no more questions today, then I will say thank you to everybody for watching, listening, looking, and questioning. We'll see you next time. Until then, seek joy. You're welcome.